about this show. Let me tell you, something a little different. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. I'm so excited for today's show because I have always, my whole life actually, because I've been vegan, not my whole life, but at least for the last 45 years that I've been vegan, I have wanted a solution to this problem: humane pest control. You know, people don't understand that aren't vegan, that when you're vegan, you don't like to kill anything. I mean, you know, not ants, not spiders. And I've never known the solution. Well, guess what? As often happens on this show, one guest refers another guest. And thank you, Katrina Fox, for referring me to Kevin Newell. He's broadcasting all the way live from Scotland. He's personally been vegan for over 22 years, and he knows the answer to all these questions. He is from the company Humane Wildlife Solutions, and he can work with you wherever you live. That's the cool thing about it. You don't have to live in Scotland. Please welcome him to the show. I'm so happy to meet you.
Hi AJ, how you doing?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, before we even get into Humane Wildlife Solutions, which I really have so many questions to ask you and questions have been sent in, I'd like to get to know you a little bit because, you know, when you think of, it's so funny because when I don't like the word exterminator, but that's what they call it, right? When the people that they come out and they kill the bugs or the rats or whatever, I don't like that that's even called that. But when I lived in Los Angeles, which was most of my life, I always lived in an apartment. I couldn't afford a house. And when you live in an apartment, you kind of have to go by the rules of the property management company. And they had, you know, monthly extermination. The company would come, not in my apartment. I could legally refuse that no matter what, but they would spray the perimeter of the building and also the hallways, I guess, ostensibly for roaches. And I found it very curious that the man that owned the company was he himself vegan. Yet he was able to do this. And the thing is he was not an ethical vegan necessarily. He went vegan for, you know, cardiac reasons and because he had heart disease. But I love the fact that you practice what you preach because I just love it. So tell me your vegan story. 22 years, that's pretty darn good.
Okay, yeah. So growing up as a kid in Essex, which is to the east of London, I was different to the rest of my friends. So when my friends as teenagers, when they were out chasing girls, seeing who they could kiss, I was out looking for all sorts of wildlife. I was just fascinated by the natural world. And this is before I even knew what veganism was. This fascination for wildlife and animals led me to work at an animal sanctuary, which was down the road from where I lived on the Essex coast. And the story goes, there were these Chinese potbelly pigs, so they're small versions of pigs, all rounded, full of character. They were going to the local abattoir, but they escaped. So these pigs were running around this little village in the middle of Essex, and they came to our rescue centre because people didn't want them killed. It was ironic because there's people who would normally eat pigs, not wanting these pigs to be killed because they're all over the newspapers and in the media. So my job that summer, and this is just when I'm just a teenager, was to settle these pigs into their new homes, spend every day with them, get them used to people until the day come that they could roam free around this big rescue sanctuary and they can intermingle amongst the people. The very first day, AJ, that these pigs got let out of their pen, and just for this moment, I still think this is crazy. I wasn't even vegetarian, let alone vegan at this point. Yet I had such love for these other earthlings that I got to share my summer days with. I went to the cafe on site at the rescue to go and have a sausage sandwich, and one of my pigs snuck in the door behind me. One of the younger pigs followed me in, and in that moment I was sitting there with a sausage sandwich in my hand. I was like, oh my God, I could be eating one of my pigs. I was like, right, I made a big song and dance. I was like, I'm going to go vegetarian, never going to eat meat again. I can't eat the animals that I am caring for. It doesn't make sense. And then at that moment, a man came into the cafe. He had really rough, scraggly hair, kind of afro, with a snail shell and other bits of creepy crawlies in his hair. And I was like, he's a very, very peculiar man. And he said, well, you should go vegan. And I was like, what's a vegan? So he went on to tell me about, especially in the UK at that time, about the dairy industry where, you know, male calves and other young calves were taken away from their parents, and the male calves were killed because they had no value to the farmer. And I didn't believe it. So he said then, okay, when you finish working here next weekend, I'll take you to a dairy farm and you can see for yourself. Now, in my world, I didn't even know what I was getting into, to be honest. We went to this dairy farm. I thought we were just going to walk down the driveway and see the cows in the fields, all happy, but it wasn't like that, AJ. It was horrific. We kind of entered the property unannounced, uninvited, through over the back fence. And I was already a little bit suspicious why we weren't just going down the driveway into this farm. We were, you know, making our own entry on site, trespassing, I guess you want to call it. And there was a renter skip at the back of this farm. And he said, take a look in there. So I did. I looked in the skip, and what I saw shocked me. And even telling it now is making the hairs on my arms stand up. I saw one dead male calf sitting at the bottom of the skip in a pool of blood. And on top of him, laid across him, was one which died in front of us. And I was like, this is insane. You know, we've got to help them. We've got to do something. And of course, this was common practice in dairy farms. And at that moment, it shocked me so much, and it did affect me so much. I was like, right, that's it. I don't know what a vegan is. My friend David's going to have to tell me. He did tell me, but that moment changed my life. And it changed all those years since I've been vegan. Everything I've done has been thinking about the animals since then. But that moment was really horrific. Sticks in my mind even to this day. But it was such a powerful moment, because that is literally guided and changed my whole life since then. And that day was the day I went vegan at a little dairy farm in Essex. Me expecting the cows to be bouncing around the field all happy, giving us their milk because they didn't need it anymore. I was very wrong, and I got a very, very rude awakening.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I almost wish more people would have to see that, because it's like Paul McCartney said, if slaughterhouses had windows, everyone would be vegetarian.
Yeah, but there's a reason slaughterhouses are all closed off to the public, and people need to ask themselves, what are they trying to hide? Because I saw just one small end of the line part of that process, and that was bad enough. So, you know, it was just the sound, the smell, the sight, all combined hardwires your brain, you know, when you're just a teenager, into knowing that is such a big moment in my life, that changed my future forever for the best. You know, it was a horrible way to discover it, but I'm glad it happened. Looking back now, I'm glad I saw that, but I still wish I could save those two poor souls that were just treated like trash, basically.
I think a lot of people don't want to see what you see, you know, they don't want to know, because then they might have to make a change.
Yeah, I think we need to, though. As much as it's uncomfortable and it's scary and you don't want to face the truth, I think for your own, to get your own value of where you are in the world and what's happening really in the world, instead of putting your head in the sand, you need to have these experiences in life, because if not, you're not really living. You're just following the crowds and not opening your eyes to what's really going on in the world. And there's a lot of bad things that happen to animals on this planet. And we need to be aware, not just to the ones at the food chain, but to all of the animals that get mistreated by humans.
So you were a teenager at that time. So I'm guessing you probably didn't have any health problems. Did you notice any difference, though, in how you felt or looked when you went vegan as a teenager?
Yeah, I was always quite fit. I was an athletic teenager. I got offered to run for the county as a long distance runner, but I turned them down because I was wanting to spend more time with my animals. So I was always really, really healthy, and I think that made me even more healthy. Going on a few years when I was in my early 20s, I remember that I had a health assessment done at one of my employers, where I used to help try and people overcome their constraints that would stop them getting into work. And I loved it. I'm a compassionate person. I love helping people, whatever the case be. So at this work, we all had to do health assessments, and we had to do 3 minutes of physical exercise, and then they time how quick our heart rate would go back to normal. Mine was 1.5 minutes quicker than everyone else in the company, and they couldn't understand it. And I didn't go to the gym. I never worked out. I'd always just been naturally fit and athletic, but I do believe my vegan diet played a part. Now, the nutritionist and the health person who did the test, they couldn't believe it. They made me do it twice, and my results were the same twice. And it was such a big change. He in all these years, he's never seen anything like this. So he asked me why he thought I was like that, because I weren't going to the gym every day. I didn't go to the gym. I think I've been to the gym about 5 times in my life, to be honest. And I said to him, I think it's due to my vegan diet, you know, the way I live my life. And he actually went vegan after that, shortly afterwards, because he was so impressed that, you know, someone who's not going to the gym, and he was an avid gym member, I even beat his records. So it was quite an eye-opener moment to see someone who thinks they're looking after their health and going to the gym and being really athletic and fit is being outdone by a skinny teenager who's a vegan. Well, not just after in my early 20s, sorry, who was a vegan that didn't go to the gym. And I think that's an eye-opener for him at that point.
So did your parents mind that you, I mean, so I saw a lot of people say, well, my parents didn't let me. Did they care that you went vegan? And did your mom make you vegan food or anything like that?
My parents didn't really fuss over it, to be honest. I've always been a very headstrong person. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Growing up in Essex, that part of England is a very fast-paced life to live in if you don't know what you want and don't go out to just, you know, have that self-belief to say, I'm going to be vegan, I'm going to do it. No matter what anyone says, if it's hard, I'll find my way through it. So my mum is really supportive. She still is now. She didn't really understand it. My rest of my family, they were teasing me all the time about it. But again, you know, water off a duck's back, as the saying goes. I didn't let it get to me. I knew what I was doing. That moment I had was more of an impact in my life than anything my friends or family could tell me. So it was never going to change me. If anything, it hardened my resolve. And I was like, why aren't you going vegan? And I remembered I'd go out with my friends who weren't vegans and they'd go to McDonald's, and I'd even refuse to go onto the premises. So I'd stand outside on the footpath, the sidewalk outside McDonald's, refusing to go anywhere near it, because to me, that was the image of all these animals being slaughtered for what my friends were going to have. And it was, to me, it was my protest, and every way I could protest against it, I did.
Did any of your friends and family at the time go vegan or improve their diet, or even today, now that it's been 22 years?
No, they didn't. No, to be honest, I got myself a new friend group. I met through my friend David, who showed me the way to be vegan. I met some really other amazing vegans, and we were all animal activists and animal rights protesters when I was a teenager, and we done some amazing things helping animals all over the country and all over Europe. So I changed my whole friend group. My family I couldn't change. They were never going to change their diets, but I found my real family, you know, not my biological family, my vegan family. And even to this day, I'm still really, really good friends. We stay in touch, and we see each other whenever I'm down that part of the world.
That's fantastic. What is traditional Scottish food like? And is it easy to veganize?
Traditional Scottish food, they love their cooked breakfast. They love their rolls. They love, you know, their haggis and all these typical meals that you would find up here. But to start with, no, it's really, really hard. You know, when I first went vegan, I was traveling 15 miles to get to my nearest health food shop just to pick up powdered soy milk and vegan sausages, which you had to make from scratch. And that was all we had. So there was nothing in the shops you could buy and just have like we have today. Like today I can, you know, I travel all over the UK and Europe. I can go anywhere and find good vegan food without having to worry. But back in the day, when I first went vegan, AJ, it was tough. You know, if anyone says going vegan these days is too hard, speak to me and I'll tell you how hard it was back then, because it's easy these days, I tell you.
That is fantastic. So tell me about your work. How did you get into it, and how did you figure out a humane solution? And if there is a humane solution, why aren't more companies using it?
Okay, so I was in my job helping people back into work, helping people overcome disabilities and mental health issues so they could find their dream jobs. And I was told I had to take a really big pay cut, and I just couldn't afford it. So I got to the point I was sick and tired of working for an organization which didn't value me. So I was like, right, I need to do something I'm passionate about. And I was watching a program called Fox Wars in the UK, and they were saying how 30,000 foxes are killed every year in the UK just because they're in our urban areas. And I was like, that's shocking. And I came across a gentleman called John Bryant, who's no longer with us. He was my mentor to start with. He died a few years ago. But he wrote books about this could be a thing and how you could do this, but it was never really practiced in person. He did a few jobs, but he was at his retirement age, and he was happy to guide me and take my enthusiasm and my energy and say, look, you've got to carry the baton now. You've got to take this forward. You've got to make it into something big and make it into a business. So I started just, I was mad about animals anyway, so I knew a lot of knowledge about wildlife, but I started to read more and learn more and understand their psychology and their behavior, and figured a way that I could turn this into a business. And we've been running, this is our 10th year. We're going to be running, this is now AJ, and I've helped over 4,500 people all over the world, from Canada to America to Nepal to Vietnam to China, all over Europe, all over the UK. And there's such a huge demand. But when I first started, I remember my friends and family laughed at me because they were like, you can't humanely save rats and you can't humanely save mice. Well, you know what? I found a way. I found ways to help every species on this planet so far that I've been challenged to help. And the business is succeeding and booming.
Every species except the human race, huh?
Oh, we can't even help ourselves. So I'm not going to try with that one.
Wow. So how long have you had this company?
So in September this year will be my 10th year. I started it on my birthday, so it's quite going to be quite a big moment when I celebrate my birthday's 10th year and my 10th year.
Wow. So who comes to you, Kevin? I mean, are they just like who is your client, and how do you work with people outside of Scotland?
Okay. So who are my clients? I did a little bit of diving into my data, and you would be really surprised that vegans only make up around about 40% of my client base. The 60% are non-vegans and non-vegan businesses. So I help everything from residential people who live at home, in their domestic houses, to really big international businesses. I have 2 really huge high street clients in the UK, and I look after nearly 300 stores just for those 2 clients alone. So it just shows you that we were given this chance by one of these companies. I met their director, their CEO on one of these stores, and they're a very pro-animal, pro-planet, pro-people organization. And I said, I love what you do. I love what you stand for, but what do you do for your pest control? Because you claim to love animals, want to help animals. And the director looked at his advisor and she was like, no, don't say nothing. And he went, you know what? I'll be honest, there's no alternative out there. And I literally went, ta-da, I am the alternative. And he was like, what do you mean, ta-da? And I explained to him what my business was about. And he went, right, we're going to give you a 2-year trial. You've got to show us that it works. And we blew them away. Now, this is one of the biggest high street stores in the UK. And we show them that you can have wildlife control without killing or harming a single creature. And I mean, not just pigeons and foxes and mice and rats. We're talking ants and flies and, other insects. And we showed them it could work. And now that's gone international now. It's not just in the UK. We have consultation services for people all over the world. And just recently, we've done work in United Arab Emirates in Dubai. We've had people in our help there. We've helped people with wolves in Canada, raccoons and skunks in America, fire ants in Sweden, to rats right up on a Buddhist monastery in the Nepalese mountains. And also for rats in China and Vietnam, you name it, we've helped species everywhere, all over the world. We just keep on getting more and more people coming back because we're so successful at what we're doing, and we're changing the world. And just to answer that last question, why aren't more companies doing this? Pest control, the lethal companies know that if they come to your house and put poison down to kill mice or rats, they may kill them, but they'll know without doing any preventative work, they'll be back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And guess what? That client's going to have to call that company to come out again and pay them again. It's almost like a cash cow, as they say. One example that I come across was in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. I met a pest controller and he did one street. That's all he did, a mile long. He started one end, went down and come back up the other. And that's all he did. His whole year was on one road. And he put poison down, he killed the mice, and they come back within weeks. With the work I do, we stop them coming back. We do preventative measures. So we know our methods work. And we've even had lethal companies ask me to train their staff to find a way that they can do similar work to what I do.
Well, it sounds like that in general, what people do in extermination doesn't work because why would they have to come back every month? Like when I think, and what if there anything I could have done living in a building? Like, I mean, I couldn't fight them on it. You know, it's their building. They have a right to do that. But it always bothered me because I lived in an apartment all the time and it drove me crazy that they did that. Yeah, well, I mean, in the UK, we're actually working with a legal firm who's all based around animals, and a lot of their staff are vegan. We're working on legal documents to challenge this in the UK, where local authorities or the city council go, you need to put poison down for rats in your garden. We've found a way, and I've spent a lot of my own money on this, and I don't make money from it, but I'd like to give back to try and make a real difference in the world. And we've found a way that we can challenge these authorities and these cities and these factors into saying, no, you can't just put poison down. Our client are vegan or they're compassionate and they don't want something to be killed. Now, we found a legal way that we can go, you can't do this. As long as that client speaks to me and they're meeting their legal obligation, they cannot be forced to have lethal poison or anything else put down in their properties. You know, there are ways, and you know, let's say for the apartment and they're coming to put sprays down every month, that's having such a bad impact, not on just non-target species, but on the environment as well. All these toxic chemicals seeping into the ground, into waterways, into the environment, which wildlife and other animals need to use. You know, AJ, one thing as humans we forget is we're not the only species on this planet. We are all earthlings and we all share this planet, and humans need to learn to be able to cope with wildlife at the same time. Absolutely. And the things they use to kill, I hate the word too, pests, they have to be toxic to humans too. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, totally. I 100% agree. We know here in the UK that the poisons they put down for rats and mice kill all sorts of non-target species. Protected, legally protected species are being killed. People's pets are being poisoned. And yet this industry is still allowed to continue to put these poisons down. Now, you talk about London and the southeast of England, there is now, they believe, about 95% resistance to all lethal poisons. So that means the rats and mice have bred immunity to these toxic poisons, and it's not killing them anymore. Now that's just shown that the pest control industry is not working. They've been trying to kill animals for decades, if not over 100 years, and they're still saying rats and mice are the highest level they've ever been. Well, you know what? Until they start trying to address the real problem and figuring out why these animals are getting into people's houses and protecting their homes, they wouldn't need to worry about it. The rats and mice would not be able to get into homes. They live in a natural environments, and their populations would naturally get to a level where they'd be sustainable and not come into conflict with people.
Absolutely. What are some of the problems with the chemicals? Because I think of myself, I'm somebody who has a history of asthma. That would be one thing I would be concerned, like that it would affect my breathing.
Well, it depends on each country around the world will have different regulations and laws on what they can use. I know that your wasp sprays in the UK, you know, these sprays are so toxic, AJ. You spray it on a wasp and it kills it instantly. I've seen people spraying this above their face with the spray going and them inhaling it. Now, if a spray is deadly enough to kill an insect on contact, just imagine what kind of effect that must be having on a human. You know, so there's got to be, some really drastic effect that they have on humans. Apart from, we know already that these poisons and that have a really bad effect on our beloved pets, our animal companions, our cats and our dogs, which die because of these. So I don't think anyone's really looked into just how big of an impact this has on us humans. And I would strongly suggest some of them, especially the sprays, if people are allowed to use them in their own homes to spray ants or to spray wasps, that's going to be having a big impact on our health.
Yeah. Do insects feel pain? What do you know about their nervous system? And, when do they die quickly? I always think
insects do feel pain. In fact, I read a really interesting study, I think it was done by Oxford University, talking about the emotions that insects display. Now, if an animal's can display emotions, it certainly can feel. So we know, and this is bees and wasps and ants. These are three of the species which are exterminated in their millions in the UK. But we know these creatures are sentient. We know they feel, they have emotions. And if they can feel just like we can, why can't they feel pain? Why, if they have the ability to feel happy and to feel sad, surely they have the ability to feel pain as well. And then we have to then look at that. Why do we, just because we're humans and we can communicate to each other that we feel sad or happy, we feel pain or we don't. I think it's very silly of the human race, we declare ourselves so advanced above every other species on this planet, to then assume that other species don't have these same emotions. We're almost trying to say that we're not a part of the natural world, that we've taken ourselves out, the natural cycle of the planet, stood ourselves to the side and gone, oh, we're better than all them. And then they can't feel pain because an ant can't tell you it feels pain. A bee can't tell you that it feels pain. A rat can't tell you that it's sad because an exterminator's killed its children. These they do. Insects, all animals. I'm convinced of it. I've seen, I did a trial last year in Glasgow, and I've seen when I've had to remove gull eggs and gull chicks, and the law said last year you had to kill him, but I was like, I'm not going to kill him. So we set up a trial, thanks to the Scottish government, and we took the eggs and chicks to rescue centres where they were hatched and raised back into the wild. And it was the first time it's ever been done in the UK. And in fact, it was so successful, this trial we did, the Scottish government introduced a brand new law and licence this year, allowing even lethal controllers to take chicks, newborn chicks, to rescue centres to help preserve red-listed species. And going back on Do These Feel Pain, I saw the pain and the misery of these parent birds when I was taking their eggs and chicks to these rescue centres. I was saying sorry to them because it was absolutely devastating me, ripped my heart to shreds, because they were sitting there watching me and they were muttering little noises to each other. And I knew in that moment those animals were sad. I've just taken their children from them. And they don't know that I'm going to do the best by them and take them somewhere they're going to be looked after and released back into the wild. They didn't know that. And that broke my heart. So I've experienced their emotions firsthand. And I know when I took those chicks away from those parent birds, they thought that was the end of them. They thought I was going to harm them. And I knew those birds were suffering. And that was hard. But if I hadn't done that, someone would have come along and just killed those babies. So the emotional toll on me was tough, but I knew the greater good of what I'd done was saving those birds' lives.
The thing is like we have people that don't even care about other animals. If you look at factory farms, the way animals are tortured and abused, and the people, I think as long as people eat animals, it's going to be a hard sell to get them to care about rats and spiders. You know what I'm saying? For me, it's not.
Yeah.
The leap is just, they're all sentient beings, but it seems like unless it's a cute and fuzzy animal that could be a pet, people don't seem to care about them. And even vegans I know would think nothing about just using regular extermination methods, because, I think when it comes to, I'm going to just say the word pest because I don't know what to call it, things that invade your home that are not invited, there seems to be a more of a feeling like, well, then it's okay to kill them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But then, as from a vegan perspective, if you think, let's say you have ants coming into your home, ask this of yourself. So anyone's watching this and, ask this yourself. If you've got ants in your home, what gives you the right to take another life or kill those earthlings? They have every right to be on the planet as much as you do. Yes, it's in your home, but did your home exist there before they did? No, they've been living on that land there for more generations than humans have ever known. So what gives us the right then to decide that we are judge and jury and that we should take their lives and ruin their cycle? You know, if you have problems with that, come and speak to me. I've found a way to solve ant problems without harming ants. And it just took me time to learn how they think and how they behave, learning their psychology, and then using that against them without causing them any harm. So, yeah, you know, we have to be tolerant, because like, I'll keep saying this because I think it's really important. We are humans and we think we're the top creature on this planet. But you know what? We're all earthlings. Every living species on this planet is an earthling. We share this planet, we don't own it. And we need to learn to tolerate and get along with other species.
We don't even get along with each other.
I know.
I mean, you know, but Kevin, you mentioned ants. So I don't want to forget the question that, because Kathy took the time to write in, and we have lots of questions in the chat, but I'm having such a great time talking to you that I'm not looking at the chats, but I will get there. And Kathy's saying, I've been having tiny little sugar ants in my house, mostly in the kitchen, even though I don't eat sugar. I've sprayed white vinegar and used black pepper everywhere, a mess, and helped briefly, but they come back. Then I tried vinegar with cayenne pepper. That works better, but they still show up there. It's so hard because I don't want to harm them, but I don't know what to do.
Okay, well, this is an easy one. So what she's done there already by spraying the sprays she's been using, that's good. Now, the reason it's good, because ants work with chemical warfare, we like to call it. They lay chemical trails. So if these ants are living under the house or in the walls or outside, what happens is you'll get one ant who comes in and he goes along a trail, or she comes in, finds a bit of food and like, oh, great, this is fantastic, goes back to take it to the nest. And when the ant returns, that trail that it's just gone along, the scent is doubled. Every time more ants go along that trail, that scent gets stronger. Now, the sprays they've used breaks down that chemicals of their trails and removes it. So the ants have to find a way in again. So here's what you do if you have ants in your home. First thing I'd say hi to them. You know, they know you're there. They can be fearful of you. They may just be getting on with their lives, but you know, there's no harm in introducing yourself to your little ants. But what you want to do, you want to see where they're going. Watch them, observe them. They'll go from where they're going to, they'll go to their food source and they'll go back out again. And the key thing is you want to follow that line of ants, or follow that one ant until it disappears into a hole in the wall or the floor or wherever it's getting into your home. Then what you do is you wait until it's nighttime. And this is really important when working with ants, because ants will go to bed at night, they'll go to the nest, and you'll know at this point that everyone's back where they need to be and you can do the work. The first thing you do is you can use a pure lemon spray. So if you get lemon, put it in a water bottle, squeeze as much lemon juice in as you can, or vinegar, you can use either, spray it all over the floor where the ants have been. This is the chemical warfare. The lemon and the vinegar will break down the chemical trail the ants leave and neutralize that zone. And then once that does that, the ants won't be able to follow that same path again. They've got to relay that path. The next thing you're going to do, if you've found where that little hole is, maybe in the wall they're coming through, as it's at nighttime and everyone's now back in the hole in the nest, you can simply close up that wall with some kind of sealant, stopping them getting back in. And that really is a simple way to solve an ant problem without harming a single ant.
Wow, that's interesting. Let me ask you, do you think that it's more when people are like, okay, not every insect can cause harm, but people don't like cockroaches, let's be honest. There's something kind of like an ick factor for a lot of people, and spiders too, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily harmful. But there are certain insects that could harm you or your pet, like black widow spiders, for example.
Okay, yep. So I've dealt with false widow spiders here in the UK. And again, it's about understanding what you're working with. So you need to ID the species first. It's really important to ID what species you're coming across. Now, if you've got a black widow in your home and you're feeling brave enough to try and catch it, then fair enough, go ahead. All you simply need to do, you know, when I worked with the false widows down in Essex, I was simply catching them in little jars. In fact, I've got one here because It's one of my sample jars. So you see here, this is a simple little plastic container that we use for insects. You simply put it over top, put a bit of paper underneath, tip it upside, seal the lid, take them outside. And it really is as simple as that. If you're worried about the species, then it might be worth just putting some gloves on just so they can't bite through the skin. But even with these species, even if they're black widows and they're potentially dangerous to us, it doesn't mean we have the right to kill them and take their lives. They're not going into your home to cause you harm. And I know they'll scare people in their homes. And the same with cockroaches and any other insect. They're just trying to live their lives. So, if you don't want them there, then just simply take them outside and let them find another place to go. You don't need to kill them, no matter what the species is. And, a good example here is wasps. I have learned, AJ, I've studied wasps so much. I have learned how I can pick up a wasp nest in my hands without protective equipment, without any of the wasps swarming me or flying at me. I can then put it in a container, take it away, and reset that. And that's just because I've learned how they work, their psychology and their behavior, what their triggers are. I know how to work with wasps. And I work with them every year, and I reset their nests back into the wild. And what you do is that they will learn to change their behavior to that new site I set them in. And they've been very, very successful. It's a very successful technique. I'm not going to explain it in detail because I don't want people trying this at home. It can be dangerous. I have once got stung 18 times, and I was meant to get an ambulance sent to come and take me to hospital, but I refused because I just carry on anyway. Being a fit, healthy person, I was okay. But yeah, you can work with even dangerous species, but it's all about understanding how they work and what the risk they pose to you is.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm actually allergic to bee stings. I mean, not that would change anything, but.
Yeah, you want to be careful if you're allergic to them. I'm lucky that I wasn't. 18 stings is a lot to have in one go. But I was okay. But I mean, if you've got an allergy, a known allergy to certain species, and obviously call in someone else who can help, or get in touch with me and I can see what I can do.
Right.
To try and help at distance or any other way.
It's funny how even some vegans eat honey, which that's a whole nother show, but people think it's okay to just eat honey. It is, but not if you're vegan. It's not. No,
I agree. Yeah. Those animals are usually farmed. So, they are farmed, but just in a very different way to the way the animals that we're more familiar with are, than only chickens and your pigs and your cows and sheep and that. So yeah, for me, veganism is causing no harm to animals, having nothing from animals.
Right. Have you written a book, or have you thought about writing a book? Because I'm getting to the questions in the chat now. And one of the things I keep seeing coming up is peppermint oil. Is that a good solution?
It is. It depends in which scenario you're going to use it. If it's for rats and mice, there is a lot of stuff going on you can find on the internet which says put a bit of cotton wool with peppermint on a hole that will stop mice getting back in. It's not really true. It will deter them slightly. Now, it's because they've got a really keen sense of smell. Using peppermint, it will make them go, we don't want to go near that. It smells really strong. It's not a bad smell. I love the smell of peppermint, but it's not going to solve any of your issues in the long run. It will keep them away maybe, but they're still going to get back in unless you do the terrors there. And as for a book, I am in the process of writing a book. I run the business on my own. I travel all over the UK and Europe, so my time is very, very limited, and we're about to get into busy season here with baby foxes and baby birds everywhere. So I usually do all my work and research projects in the winter months when I'm not going out as much to help people. But I am working on a book. It's going to be a while yet, but it's going to be revolutionary for the industry and how people can deal with wildlife issues without causing any harm. And it can be done. I've been doing it nearly a decade.
Okay. Well, tell me about 3 to 6 months before it comes out, and we'll have you on the show. Well, here's a wildlife issue, and it's just so funny that this just happened. I wasn't going to tell people because it was kind of traumatic for me, and I'm going to be using it now in my stand-up comedy show in May. But I was actually attacked by a Canadian goose on Friday, and I was injured. And like, that's not in my wheelhouse to even know what to do, because you just don't expect a goose to like follow you and attack you. I wasn't the only one. This has been happening over and over. I live in the desert, and these Canadian goose come in for 6 months, and I've cohabitated with them for 3 years. And on this particular day, on Friday, this one just followed me in the parking lot and basically attacked me, and I fell and I was injured. And I mean, I'm not serious. I'm not seriously injured, but like, you know, you can't sue a goose, right? I mean, you know.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, with Canadian goose, do you know if they're nesting at the moment? If they got
well, that's my guess. But the thing is I was screaming, and so a guy came and kicked him. I mean, I felt bad. He's okay, the goose, but like you don't expect it to happen. So like, I didn't have any training as to what to do if you're attacked by a goose, because you know, what do you do?
Yeah, well, they are big birds. I'll be really honest, and it's something that we have here in the UK a lot, where Canadian geese do attack people when they've got nests, and they typically will do this when there's a nest with eggs or chicks on, and they're not trying to harm you as such. They're trying to keep you away from the area where their babies are. And if you think, let's turn the tables, AJ. Let's say you're at home and you're in the park and you've got your children with you, and this larger creature comes nearby. And what are you going to do to protect your children? You're going to try and push them away. You're going to try and get them away from your family. And that's all the goose is trying to do. He doesn't want to come and cause you serious harm. They just want to push you away as far as they can from their youngsters. And to be honest, if that happens, just walk away and allow them to do that natural behavior they're trying to do. It's only that time of the year that they'll ever do this, because they're just trying to protect their family. That's all it is. And I think when you remember that's what they're doing, it's less as of an assault or an attack. But you know, it can be sore. You know, when I worked at a rescue centre as a teenager, we had lots of geese there, and they nested on what we called Geese Island. And I used to have to go there and make sure they were all okay. And they used to attack me all the time, peck me and wing slap me, and it did hurt. But I found a way around it. So if you have a baseball cap, put your baseball cap on, tip your head up, and that's a dominant posture that a goose would understand. So when a goose usually attacks you, the head's usually up, the beak's up high. If you imitate that, put your arms out wide as if they're your wings, I found 9 times out of 10 at a rescue that the geese would back down and move away. But also that also means you back down and move away, because if you're encroaching somewhere where they've got their family, you know, it's just about being aware of that. And in cases, there will be cases where you're not aware there's a family nearby, and you walk past, or you get out your car and go near to them, and they will approach you. But remember, they're just trying to protect their family, even if it may seem quite traumatic, even in your case and the other people at the time. When you come away from it, you think, right, I got too close. I didn't know I was too close. Next time, I'll remember to stay a bit further back.
I was just in a parking lot of a hospital, though. I mean, I had to get out of my car to go to my appointment. Yeah. So, I mean, I had no one. Anyway, you know, I'm sure one day I'll laugh about this, but thank you. I don't hold any animosity towards him. Just so you know. So Dina says, please ask Kevin what I should do when a centipede shows up in my house. These bugs are very quick and hard to catch. Usually when they show up, it's one at a time, sporadically.
Oh, centipedes. Oh, as a kid, I love centipedes. I love the speed and just their colours. They always fascinate me as creatures. Well, Dina, what I would probably suggest doing here, you probably want to get a larger plastic container like a Tupperware or something. And the tip is here, because floors can be uneven, and if you've got tiled flooring or wooden flooring, they can dip in between them. So the tip is get a sheet of paper, put it down, usher them, let them run towards the paper, and then just put your tub on top, flip it upside down, take them outside. And it can be as simple as that. I know they're quick moving, but if you don't mind them being there, just appreciate them. Absolutely fantastic creatures. And one thing about your centipedes is they'll eat all the other species you don't want in your house. So if you've got spiders or other insects in your home, they'll eat them all up. They are almost a welcome guest. There would be in my home, because they'll be eating the species I don't want running around my house. So you let nature take control of maybe the spiders or other insects that you're not too keen on. They'll do their own form of extermination control for you in your home.
Well, that's the other thing. Animals do eat other animals. Bugs eat other bugs. I mean, that's nature,
Yeah, exactly. And, letting centipedes continue if you don't mind them too much. Just spend some time getting to know them, watching them, observe them, see how they behave, what triggers them. And remember, from the study I read, insects can feel fear and they can feel happiness. So when that insect sees you, it's going to probably be scared. So, if you want to get up, put outside, go ahead. But otherwise, enjoy that creature's wanting to share your home with you. That's quite an honor, if you ask me.
Well, what's interesting is on the nice end, we've had hummingbirds that keep nesting multiple times. And I think because we have a very peaceful, quiet yard and we don't bother them and we feed them. And we've had is it called a litter? But we've had so many litters these last 3 years of hummingbirds.
Wow, that's incredible. I love having birds nesting around me. In fact, wherever I go, if I'm working in London, I'm staying in a hotel. I was down in a hotel just over a month ago, and I was there for several days. Within those several days, just by observing outside the window, I knew where there was at least 8 different birds nesting in and around the area. And I know just outside my window where I'm looking now here in Scotland, I know where all the birds nest. I know where they all have their favourite places. And I love seeing them build their nest, doing their courtship, raising their young and getting to meet their young, because I feed the birds on my windowsill. So we get to see them bring their babies later on in the year over. And to know that we've played a part in helping them raise their family is quite rewarding, I think. And to have hummingbirds, AJ, wow, we don't get them in the UK. So it's a bird I've never seen, but I would love to see hummingbirds. So you're very, very lucky.
Yeah, they're really awesome. They're very cool. So here's a question from Becky. Are you able to give us plant-based pesticide recipes?
Well, we're working on some just now, Becky. I have a story, actually. We developed a wasp repellent made completely from plant compounds. So it would be almost like a plant-based pesticide, if you want to use that word. And we had a big research company here in Scotland find out about it. And I went and did a pitch to them. And they were talking about giving us millions of pounds to develop this product. However, it would mean they would have to do animal testing to do this. And I am a very principled person. And I told them, no matter how much money you're going to offer me, I'm not gonna have animals die for me trying to save animals. So we're still looking at developing that. It's one of our research projects we're still working on. The ones that we've been trying with wasps, we've had fantastic results with the wasps at the moment. And we're looking at working with universities to develop that and take that further. So it is in the pipeline, Becky. We will get there one day. I'm hoping to expand the business and build a team of vegans to help me push this further forward, because, yeah, I have found ways that you can replicate pesticides with plant-based compounds which don't harm animals and don't harm the environment and don't harm people. So we'll get there one day.
Is everybody how many people work in your company, and is everyone vegan?
It's only me, and my partner does help now and again, and my partner is a long-term vegan as well. But it's just me at the moment. So when I say I'm going all over Europe and the UK, it's me doing all of that work myself. We are looking at franchising the business very soon. And we're working on the legal documents for that. And we're getting there, nearly done. But once we can expand it further, then I hope to, the aim is to have Humane Wildlife Solutions, a global brand offering people non-lethal, vegan ethics-based solutions to wildlife issues.
Wow, so you're a one-man show right now.
I am right now.
Oh boy. Dina says her city is doing an aerial spraying for gypsy moths soon. Wonder if there's an alternative to that. But you know what, I'm not saying you can't fight City Hall, but it's harder to stop things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I just, things on those levels, aerial spraying for moths is absolutely completely madness, because what the thing is here, you're not just going to kill the gypsy moth, they're going to kill other species which are already, in such severe decline all over the world. People forget we're not just in a climate crisis on this planet, we're in a wildlife crisis, and we've got to change these. So I would definitely challenge what they're doing, because how can they rest assured that the spray they're putting out there is only going to kill that species, is not going to target other protected species which are in decline, is not going to have an effect on the water table, the local environment, or even your health. I mean, I'd be absolutely devastated if that happened here in the UK. We don't have it happening in any part of the UK, and I think if anyone tried, it would be shut down very, very quickly.
Right. Thank you. Here's a question from Amy. Is there a humane way for rat eradication?
Well, hi, Amy. I would first say that the wording of that is, it clashes. You can't have a humane way to eradicate something. Those two things go together. They don't go together. I'm not picking apart your question. I'm sorry.
You're actually quite funny, because that reminds me of George Carlin when he talked about things like jumbo shrimp, like, you know, or
yeah, it doesn't work. So I mean, firstly, you can't humanely kill anything. You can't humanely eradicate anything. If you've got rats, be them in your house or in your garden or your yard, it's really easy to solve. Understanding rats, their psychology behavior is fascinating, by the way. If you ever want a good read about, you know, rats as a family unit. They're so social and intelligent. They're my toughest client I work with. And when I work with people, I always say the client is the animals I'm working with, not the person who's paying me. So I always put their best interest first. If they're in your house, you know, there's a big process. We do consultations all over the world. If you have rats, get in touch and I'll run you through how to solve these issues. There is no set template, Amy, to solve these issues. Every case is completely individual. So you have to work every case one at a time. There are ways you can do it. I've never ever had or never will kill or harm an animal. And we work with rats all the time. We've done hundreds, if not thousands of rat jobs over the years. And it can be done. I've done it on so many occasions. We've had huge successes in the rat family being moved on their own time, on their own accord. And the way we do it is, you know, one of the things which we can template for every job is we allow the rats to decide to move on their own accord, because that way, if they've got babies, they'll take them with them and find a new home on their own. And that way you're making sure their family's not split up, because rats, and I'm guessing many people who are listening, if you've had rats as animal companions in your home, you'll know how intelligent and clever they are. And the wild rats are just the same. We need to remember, when you're working with something of that level of intelligence, you need to take so much care working with them, but you can solve the issues.
Fantastic. So, you know, what about okay, I know there's no such thing as humane eradication, but what about humane sterilization? So, like, could you give them some kind of food that will sterilize them so that they don't keep reproducing?
You could do. I know in the United States, that's an option you have there. We don't have them in the UK. So contraceptives for wildlife is banned. Now, the reason why I don't think it's good is because you cannot guarantee that contraceptive won't go up the food chain. So if something ate that rat which has got it in, it's going to pass up the food chain. And you can't also guarantee you're not going to target protected species. You can't guarantee that other animals are going to fall foul of this contraceptive. I don't believe messing with the biological systems of any animal is vegan, to be honest. You giving contraceptive to an animal which isn't willingly wanting to take it, you're technically drugging that species. And I think that's wrong on so many moral, ethic reasons. It may seem like it's a good idea, but it's not, because you're going to do more harm to that family in the long run. You're better understanding how they work than rather trying to control the population like that. You know what? Using contraceptives like that is meant to control their population numbers. There is an easier and quicker way to control any mammal or any animal population, especially rats. And you can do that by simply controlling their food. If you control their food source, you control their population number. If you, for example, have rats which are feeding off loads of bird food and they're breeding because there's loads of food, they'll breed to that food source. So if it's a limitless supply of food, you'll just get so many rats. Now, in that scenario, if you, let's say, had 10 rats feeding off this food, You remove that food source, the first thing the rats are going to do is they're going to stop breeding, because they will not want to continue to breed when they can't even feed themselves. Now, female rats are super intelligent creatures. If they know their food source is gone and they're at early stages of pregnancy, they are believed to be able to abort their pregnancy and reabsorb the embryos back into their body. They will also, if they're too late on in the pregnancy and they give birth, and they know there's not enough food to raise a family or to support themselves, let alone their new babies, they will eat those young straight away. Rats control their populations very, very strictly. So if you want to control their population, contraceptives is not a viable way at all. It's not ethical. It's not a vegan way. You want to control that population, you control their food. You cut that food source off, the first thing rats are going to do is stop breeding, and you've got control over them without them even knowing it from the get-go.
Wow, thanks. Now, are there any species that are potentially, is there a risk for human if we're infested with, are there any that carry any danger, you know, like?
No, well, not really, not. I mean, unless there could be species, I don't know if you have rabies there in the United States in the wild mammal population. We don't have it here in the UK. That would be the one which would stand out to me the most. But if you're talking about having insects or mice or rats in your home and the risks they can bring to you, I always say that they're not much bigger risk than having cats and dogs in your home. You know, these animals, they go outside, they're picking up and walking in the same places the rats and mice are. Rats, for example, are very hygienic, clean creatures. Yes, Wales disease is something they talk about, but that's only if they're urinating in your water supply at a long, over a long period of time. You know, I did a little bit of research into disease and rodents and that here in the UK a few years back, using our fantastic NHS, which is our health service here in the UK, using their records. Now, in 1 year, I found that one person was put in hospital due to illness from a rat. And the illness is usually, you know, they're not always that serious if quite early, but this person was put in hospital as a precaution. In the same year, 6 people died for a vending machine falling on top of them. And in that same year, a professional footballer in the UK bit more people than ended up in hospital due to rats. So if you want to compare it to other hospitalizations or other facts, you know, 6 people dying for vending machines falling onto them, or one person in hospital as a precaution because they may have picked something up from a rat, puts it into perspective. You know, our pets have the ability to bring the same illnesses and diseases back into our homes. The fact that they don't infect us as humans in the homes that we share together shows that the risk is very little. There's always going to be a certain risk, but, you know, different countries will have different disease issues. But the risk, you know, you just need to really, really calculate what risk there could be. There's never such a risk that you need to kill them straight away because you're worried immediately that you're going to fall ill. If they've just turned up in your home, you can solve the problem without having to worry about these.
Right. Valerie says, love what you're doing. What about termites? Because like when you buy and sell a house, like there's this mandatory termite inspection. And if there's termites, you know, I mean, there's laws that don't support what you are trying to do, at least in our country.
Oh, yes.
You know?
And I come across those laws here in the UK sometimes, but I know the way we work solves these issues. And sometimes, you know, this is a famous saying which has been said throughout time: just because something is law, it doesn't make it right. And we all have the right to challenge certain laws or bylaws or regulations set by cities or states or governments, you know. And in cases where, you know, with termites, if you've got to do these inspections and you find termites, it doesn't mean you need to kill them. You know, using something like a citronella or peppermint oil and dousing the areas that they're chewing through, the wood areas, you can drive them away from that. You can make that area inhabitable for them, so they won't chew on those bits of wood. It's something that we're still trialing because obviously you're going to push them onto other areas. But if you treat the wood that they potentially going to eat so they can't get a new source of wood and use plant-based compounds like citronella and peppermint, you may have a chance to push them out and away and allow them to move naturally to a new site where they're not going to cause any harm.
What do you think of this, Kevin?
Oh, right. So what does that do? I've never seen one of them before.
Okay, well, so here's the thing. I'm going to admit, I'm just, and this is from birth, so it's not from experience. I'm really afraid of spiders. I just am. I've had psychological. I can't get over it, and I'm not so afraid of like the black widows, which are little, but we have in the desert these things called wolf spiders, and they're huge, and they get in the house, and sometimes they have hundreds of babies on their back, and they just creep me out. And so, not wanting to kill anything, my husband has one of these in every room, and it just suctions them up, and then it's like catch and release.
I think that's great. That's such a simple, innovative way to deal with a species without killing. And AJ, that's a great example for people listening. You know, you don't have to kill. You've got a phobia of these big spiders, and you've found a way that you can remove the issue without harming them. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. I've never seen one before. We don't have them in the UK.
Really? I think we got it on Amazon. It's, you know, I have no affiliation with this product. So just so you know,
well,
called Bugzuka. And I don't think it hurts them, because when my husband releases them, he makes a little video and then they scurry away.
Fantastic. If that works and it solves the problem without the need to kill, then for people who are not vegan or people who are scared of spiders, there's a solution right there. I think that's brilliant, AJ.
Yeah, well, thank you. There's somebody watching who has a great name. AJ says, a question: would there be a humane way to get bees out of the crevice between concrete blocks in a home?
Well, AJ, this is something we've been working on. This is where our spray would be really useful. However, at the moment, we suggest when they're in brickwork or in areas like you've described, to leave them and let them live out their natural cycle. Now, the key here is once they've finished their cycle and you're in the middle of the winter when they're no longer going to be living there, then's the time to close up that gap. At the moment, though, until we develop this spray further, there's not really much else you can do. However, if that gap in the wall's right next to a door and you need to use that walkway often, there are things you can do. We have found a way that you can deflect their entry to these holes. So let's say there's a gap in the wall here. What you can do is you can put a barrier. Let's say your door's here and the bees are here. You can put a barrier going across. It could just be a bit of wood. It could be a big sheet which you hang up. And what it does is that means all the bees have to enter the furthest part. So it's almost like a V shape. So if that's the wall and your barrier, instead of the bees coming in the top by your door, they've got to go all the way around to get into their hole. Now, this means if you disturb the bees and they swarm, they're going to swarm away from your door. So they'll go the wrong way. So they won't come near you and harm you. And then the bees can enter and leave their home for that one last season without you having to come into conflict. And we've put these barriers up and advise people to put them up. And they have such great success. It's such a simple way of just, solving their issues. And it's working on that psychology and behavior. So it can be done. If you have that issue right now, you can email me, get in touch, just go Humane Wildlife Solutions. You can find this on via Google. You can find us on Facebook. And if you still can't find me, I'm sure AJ would more than be delighted to point you in our direction. But yeah, and in those cases, wait till the winter until the nest is abandoned. Let them live their lives and have their queens go out and get ready for the next year and just seal up the hole, and that will stop them coming back the next year.
Wow, thank you. There is a nice comment from Leah that you're an amazing person with a fantastic approach. And AJ says, how do you get ants out of the house humanely? I wish they would just respond to like, hey, leave, get out. Well, I've not learned their language yet, but Leah, I did explain earlier on in the chat tonight how to do that. It is all about understanding their behavior. So the key thing is observing those ants to start with, see where they go to. You'll learn two things. You'll learn what they're coming in for, the food source, and how they're getting in, the entry point. You wait until nighttime, until these ants are all back in their nest, and you close the entry point up, and then you use either a lemon or a vinegar spray, as pure as you can, onto the floor areas where they've been going. And what that does, it dissolves their chemical trail. And like I said, it's like a little mini chemical warfare when nothing's dying, and that dissolves their path, and it stops them finding their way back to that food source. Simple as that. Are palmetto bugs the same as cockroaches?
What bugs, sorry?
Palmetto bugs, because he's asking how to humanely get rid of palmetto bugs, and then there's
I've never heard of palmetto bugs, but I mean, if you have a problem with them, get in touch. I will research it and find you a way to help deal with them. There's not a challenge I haven't managed to solve. And, you know, we've done, like I say, everything from wolves to skunks, raccoons, fire ants in Sweden. I've never seen a fire ant, but we found a way. I even helped the South African government find a way to deal with baboons. So if you've got an issue, I will more than happily.
According to Google, palmetto bugs are Florida cockroaches. That's what they call them in Florida. And you know, cockroaches seem to be insidious though. Like once they come in, they don't want to leave.
Yeah, well, with cockroaches, the general approach with them is it's down to the basics of having to handpick every single one out you can. So you have to catch them, keep them together, and then you take them away somewhere where there's wasteland, where there's good rockery, where there's a good natural habitat that they can be released into, and they will survive. Cockroaches are one of the most durable insects we have on the planet. Once all us humans have gone, they'll be the ones long left enjoying that.
What is their lifespan? Because, you know, sometimes I see them on just on my walks and they seem to die naturally at some point, you know, like they're like when they're turned over on their back. Does that mean they're about to die? Or do you need to
they turn over the back? They could just be stuck if they're turned over on their back, but their lifespan can be anything from a year to 2 to 3 years. Some species live a little bit longer than that. And obviously we judge the lifespan of most creatures on the domestication and how long they live. So in domestic situation, they can live even longer than that. But insects tend to live between 1 to 3 years in the wild. So, you know, but they breed at a high rate. The shorter they live, the higher rate of breeding they typically do.
So there's a comment that lavender incense works really well to deter cockroaches and other invited guests. Does it work on family? Because I'll put it out to keep my family.
Yeah, that probably would work. But again, these incense, they will deter them for small periods of time. But unless you're going to burn an incense at unless you're burning 10 incense of lavender at one go for 24/7, it's only going to keep them away for a small period of time. That's just treating the symptom rather than trying to solve the problem.
People are saying they wish all companies would do the kind of work you did. And, you know, it's interesting, when I moved to the desert, there was this bug that I never heard of. I guess it's an insect called cicadas. And I just thought there was something wrong with the power lines. I didn't realize that this was their noise.
Yes, cicadas are incredible insects. So I know a little bit about them, not a great deal, but the noise they make. A lot of people find it annoying. I think it's fascinating. It's reminding us, openly going, oh yeah, we share this environment with you, and it's them living their life. And beautiful dog.
Again, I mean, this is a thing. It's like how can you like love one and hurt another or eat another? This is what I never understood.
Oh, what a beautiful dog.
Thanks. She just came up on her own accord, you know.
So, hello.
Yeah, the goose attacked her too.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's the thing. That I was more scared for her, but she seemed to bounce back faster than me. I was freaking out and calling my Dr. Lyle, and it's like, I've been attacked. Anyway, that's so funny. Let's see. So, okay, I'm looking to see if there's just so many comments, but people are really enjoying this. Squirrels. How do you keep squirrels away from the outdoor garden without putting a metal screen on the veggies? How do you keep squirrels out of the bird feeder?
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll do the bird feeder and the veggie garden. So firstly, with bird feeders, when you're going to feed the birds, you know, we don't have control over how nature decides to eat food. If you're putting food out for wildlife, you've got to accept all the wildlife that comes. You can try little cages to stop the squirrels getting in, but why don't you just feed the squirrels next to where you feed the birds? Squirrel boxes are fantastic. The feeding boxes you can get are fantastic to deter them from going to your bird food. But do remember, if you're feeding wildlife, you don't get to control what happens in Mother Nature's domain. She decides, and they will decide who goes where. You know, I've come across people in the UK who go, I'm just trying to feed the blue tits or the great tits that we have here in the garden, not the pigeons or the crows. And my first response is, you don't get to make that choice. You get to make the choice you want to feed them. You don't get to choose which species come there. So you have to be accepting of all of them. If you don't want them getting your bird food, you can simply have an area where you've given them their food of their own. And that should solve your problem. As for your vegetable gardens, there's all different ways you can stop them. If you've got squirrels who are coming down and chewing on your vegetables or other plants, you can just put chili powder on, sprinkle over top. As soon as they start to try and eat through the leaves, or even for the bird feeder, you can do this. Put a chili powder in there. It's not going to harm the birds. It's not going to harm the squirrel, but the squirrel is going to react to that chili taste. So the spicier the chili powder, the more you're going to put your squirrel off from trying to get that food.
But is it a good idea to feed wildlife in general? Because doesn't that make them less afraid of humans? And then,
yeah, no, I get that. I mean, feeding the wildlife, especially here in the UK, one of the biggest problems is people love foxes, you know, like the animal above me just here, and they feed them. But what people do, they tame them. They're not responsible with their feeding. So what I mean by that is they'll try and get the fox to feed out of their hand, which to them, I understand it's a really exciting wildlife experience they're having. But what they don't understand is when that fox goes 2 or 3 houses down and it goes to someone who's terrified of foxes, now if that person doesn't call me and they call an exterminator, they're going to have that fox killed. That fox would be killed because it would be expecting every human's going to give it food out of their hand. So if you're going to feed wildlife, it's okay to do as long as you do it responsibly. And that is where you don't allow them to imprint, or you to imprint on them, or them to imprint on you. So do it at a distance where you can give them a lot of space, a lot of respect, view them from far away so you don't habituate them towards people, and then that's okay. But if you're feeding birds, one of the key things is if you've got bird feeders out and you love the birds, I love watching birds. I said that I do feed birds, but I give them respect where I'm not standing there watching them. I feed them and I go away and do what I do and come back and they've had a good meal. So when you're feeding birds, it's really important to clean the bird feeders regularly. So the best way to do it is get an animal safe, disinfect them. At night time when they're not feeding, spray the feeder down. By the morning, that's going to be sterilized. In the UK, we have a disease amongst birds that is called trichomoniasis. Tricho, as we call it for short, can cause lesions on birds' faces, and it can ultimately kill them. So, and that's due to people not cleaning their feeders, and lots of birds using these feeders. It's always good to allow birds to have natural food in the seasons like spring and summer when there's lots of natural food about. You don't really need to feed them then. But in the winter months when they're finding it hard, yeah, do feed the birds, but just be responsible while you're doing it.
wow. So Jean says if you have cockroaches get scorpions, they will eat them. But I'm not crazy about scorpions. I don't kill them, but we have them. I don't know. There's just certain things that creep me out. Snakes, spiders, and scorpions. I can't help it. It's just the way
that would be a way of having your own little ecosystem in your house. But depending on the species of scorpion and whether it poses a risk to yourself. But if a scorpion's going to eat the cockroaches, you know, that is nature solving nature's problem.
Yeah. So you need to write a book, because can you please give more specific practical household tips and repellent recipes? And so you need to write a book. I'm sorry. We need that from you.
I'm working on it, people. I will get there soon.
I am looking for this. Boy, just to think that you almost didn't come on, and what a great show this is, and just what a wealth of information you are. So let's see.
Hey, I can talk wildlife all day. All the people who know me, when I'm not doing this for business and I'm doing personal things, I'm out making wildlife films with my partner. She's an up-and-coming, hopefully an up-and-coming presenter here in Scotland, doing some narration work and presenting work. When we're not making wildlife documentaries, I'm out surveying birds for population stats. I'll go and record them. I'm doing research into them. I'm reading about them. My whole life, the only time I'm not doing anything with wildlife is when I sleep. Otherwise, my whole life, when I'm not doing this as a business, I'm out studying them. I'm out enjoying them. I'm out being in the wild. And that's who I am. I'm wildlife through and through. My whole life is dedicated to helping people love and understand wildlife.
Well, I love that you're so passionate about what you do and that you're vegan. I hope you have time to eat some delicious food during the day, though.
I try to get time. Me and my partner love cooking together. We do cook up some amazing vegan food. So yeah, I do get to enjoy lots of good vegan food. And when I go and do work all over Europe and the UK, I get to go to a lot of vegan places and enjoy some of the treats there. Some places know me and the work that I do. They often give me nice treats to thank me for the work that I do for our animals.
That's great. I would definitely feed you if you were here. Do you guys have an Instant Pot?
Oh, what? Sorry?
Do you have an Instant Pot? The electric pressure
No,
cooker?
I don't know what an Instant Pot is. No.
Oh my gosh, you have to get one. It makes vegan food very quick. It's a pressure cooker.
Oh wow. Okay, right. No, we don't. We love getting all our veg and just cooking it all from scratch and seeing what amazing concoctions and recipes we can come up with. I love to experiment with food.
Nice.
I love experimenting with food and seeing what I can come up with. And it's good. You ask my partner, she'll tell you when I'm making a meal, I don't follow a recipe. I just go with what feels right. And I've never made an awful meal yet.
And I'm a chef and I have made awful meals. So kudos to you, Kevin. Valerie says, how is it that you don't have rabies in the UK? They don't have rabies in Hawaii either, I believe.
I don't know, but it's not been here for many, many, many years. There are some bat species which have fought to carry it. We've never had an outbreak of any rabies species in the UK for decades, though. So when I get to work with foxes and creatures like that, it's always good knowing that I'm not going to be exposed to rabies. There is rabies on mainland Europe, but because we're an island, I think that plays a huge part in the reason why we don't have rabies here.
Nice. Andrea says, I appreciate his passion and compassion. Has he ever thought of writing a children's book? He could use his knowledge of the psychology of critters and start edict the next generation.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I would love to do that. If there's any illustrators or someone out there who wants to work on that project with me, I will speak to you as long as if you can put material together. So if anyone wants to collaborate and make that happen, I think that sounds fantastic. And I think it's really important reaching out to the younger generation. So when they grow up, they're exposed to compassion like us vegans, and my business is showing the world and showing people and showing children that you don't need to harm the animals we share this planet with. It's so important. So
first we got to get people to stop eating them, because I really believe, I'm making a generalization, but are there people out there that are meat eaters that are humane with insects? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is I don't think so. I think that if you think it's okay to kill other living things, you're okay with it across the board.
Well, a good example of that here in the UK, we're about to come up to the Easter weekend very soon. And in the UK, you'll have all the TV channels and media channels posting pictures of newborn chicks and bunnies and lambs. And the weird thing is they indoctrinate children to think Easter is about lambs and chicks and bunnies. And then come to Easter Day, that's the exact food they're serving you. They're serving.
I know, then they eat them. It's crazy.
I know, it blows my mind that a parent, that a family can take their child around to see lambs and go, oh, look at the baby lambs, and then go to the next building and sit there and eat them. And it's just I think the education starts within the family units, but also we all need to be educating people about what really happens, because if everyone who wasn't vegan at the time went through the experience I did, that would change you with an instant. The decisions made for you when that life in front of me is ebbing away.
Yeah, there's a saying. There was a wonderful humane activist who was an actress, a Broadway actress, a television actress, and I got to interview her once, Gretchen Weiler, who created what's called the Genesis Awards, which unfortunately no longer exists. And she used to say, cruelty can't stand the spotlight.
Couldn't put it better myself. That's so true.
Yeah. Do you have a YouTube channel or Instagram or TikTok? Mandy wants to know.
Yep, it's we don't have a TikTok. We have Instagram, which is Humane Wildlife Solutions.
I basically put everything in the show notes that you gave me, plus found your link to Facebook.
So you can see, you're able to see for the notes. So we've got a Twitter feed. We don't use that as much. It's mainly for reaching out campaigns and interactions with other organizations. But our Instagram we do use, our Facebook we use. We do have a YouTube channel. We're in the process of making some more videos on that just now. But you can check any of them out and follow and subscribe. And if anyone ever wants to talk to me about what I do, I'm always open. I do talks for all sorts of organizations, channels, social media accounts. You just got to get in touch.
Yeah.
I always think it's important to get the message out there. So I'm always willing to do events like this, AJ. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Kathy says you're amazing. What a heart. Now, here's an interesting question because it makes me think about something else. A natural tick repellent. Do you also deal with like, I don't know what the word is like. Okay, so Bailey doesn't take anything, but I know when I lived in LA, they were always pushing us to give her like pills and potions for fleas and ticks. We haven't seen any since we moved to the desert 3 years ago. She hasn't had a single, actually, she's never had either. It was my other dogs, you know, because she doesn't like to hike. So she's never there. But how do you, what do people do when they have pets that get ticks and fleas? How do you help? Can you help with that? And what do us regular humans do for tick repellent naturally? Because nobody, I'm sure, wants Lyme's disease.
With ticks, I honestly don't know a way that you can work with ticks. I've never found that or had the time to look into that. But fleas, we are in the process of research with fleas. I believe I've came up with a method where I can live catch fleas from your pets, from your home, and then you can take them outside and release them. But we're still waiting to trial it. But if it works, it will probably cost you no more than $5 to put together. And that would solve your flea problem in your house and around your pets. And it's just, again, understanding the psychology and behavior of fleas. I mean, how many people are mad enough to study flea psychology and behavior? Guilty as charged over here.
Well, you know, I had do you know Jonathan Balcombe? I had him on and he wrote a book on flies.
Oh, well, no, I don't know him, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah, he did a secret life of fish and flies. You guys should really connect because I think you guys would be kindred spirits.
Oh, sounds like we would. He sounds like a cracking guy. I think you're right. I'll have to see if I can connect with him.
Yeah, I think because maybe you guys could work together. And I'm sure there's an illustrator. I mean, and Janine Elder's not watching today, but she's a wonderful illustrator. I'm sure there's people that can do that. Yeah. This has been fascinating. And, you know, it just begets a larger discussion. How are we going to coexist with these other creatures when we don't seem to be even able to get along with our own species?
That's true. It's a tough balance. Us humans, until we learn to appreciate what's around us and the people that's around us as well, you know, we're not going to get too far forward. But, you know, even speaking right now, I've got moths above me. I've got a spider over there. In fact, we had a spider living in our bookshelf and we put a Post-it note underneath saying that's where he lived. So the spider claimed that part of the house and that was theirs. And we respect that area as their home. So just about learning to live with other species. It can be done, you know. It just takes looking inside yourself to figure out, you know. And once you understand that's a sentient being, that's an earthling. We're all earthlings because any living creature that lives on planet Earth is an earthling. We share this planet. We don't rule it. And just need to always remember that. Drill that into your mind because that taught to me is such a big meaning. I know my place on the planet, and I know when I'm working with animals, I have to show them, no matter what species, the utmost respect and love to help solve any issue that I'm working with.
Yep. So why is it, Kevin, that some people seem more vulnerable or susceptible to being bitten? You know, like we could all be in the same area and then mosquitoes and whatever bites ants seem to bite some people, but not others. Is it our microbiome? Is it our scent? Do you know what I'm saying? And is there something that we can do to make ourselves less attractive to these bugs? Because I don't get stung a lot or even mosquito bites, but when I wear shorts and the ants sometimes do get me. We have these fire ants here and they're nasty.
Well, with creatures like spiders and ants, they're more reactive to the situation. So if you walk for an ant nest or you go for a spider web, they're going to bite you. There's no way you can avoid that by doing anything. As for mosquitoes, depends. There must be something about the individual person which attracts them. You know, I've been in scenarios where I've not been bitten, but someone next to me had all the bites. But I do believe you can use plant-based repellents. Things like citronella and peppermint oils to repel them. But again, it depends on the person, to be really honest, in those situations.
Are you familiar with the brown recluse spider? Because I have had 2 close friends that were bit by them and that required surgery and hospitalization. I
have heard about the brown recluse, yeah. And I don't think there's much you can do with spiders like that, apart from if you're able to safely contain them and put them outside with most respect you can. But spiders like that, you know, that's a prime example of an insect putting us in our place in the planet, because, you know, they strip it down bare. They've not got clothes or anything on. So you take a human in a naked form next to a spider in their naked form. Now, who's the top dog there? It's not the human, it's the spider. And it's obviously don't want anyone to be any harm for them, but you need to understand your part in the planet, in the natural ecosystem, the natural cycle. That spider is above us. We may think we can crush and kill and poison and do whatever horrible things we want to it, but if that spider bites you and you don't get medical care, then, you know, that spider, you're no more bulletproof, as to say, as that spider is vulnerable. And
but they should. But wait a second, we're vegan. They should like not bite the vegans.
Oh, I wish it worked that way.
You know, I mean, we should be able to reason with them. It's like, hey, get that guy. He's a carnivore. I'm just making light of this, but I agree with you. So Ramita says, how do you keep weevils away from your grains?
Oh, that's a tough one. Depends where you store them to start with. The best way to stop insects getting into any kind of food products is having airtight containers. It's as simple as that. If you contain your food to protect it against insects getting into it, you'll be fine. But weevils are very fat up. I think they're absolutely adorable little insects with their little long snouts and their little antennae. But yeah, it's all about the way you store what they're attracted to. If you store your grains in a way they can't get in airtight containers, you're never going to have trouble with weevils. Even if a weevil comes by and it can't get the food, it's going to keep going because there's no reason for it to hang about.
What's the number one reason people seek your services? Is it a particular species that is most problematic for most people?
It's a close one between rats, foxes and mice, I would say. Different seasons, I get different spikes in the species depending what that species is doing. Like now, most of my calls at the moment are going to be foxes because we're in fox season. But rats and mice are probably constant throughout the year because in our homes they can breed all year round. So probably between rats and mice, just because they're a year-round conflict that occurs that I'm called out to help. Well, foxes are just there for about 3 or 4 months before they disperse amongst the communities.
Yeah, it kills me that people still make fox fur. I mean, even if people eat animals, fur coats have got to stop in my lifetime, because that is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's no excuse for wearing fur of any sort. But yeah, I mean, there may be odd occasions where, like, people live in the North and South Pole, if they're hunting to survive, you know, I can understand that. I still wouldn't do it myself. Yeah. But when you live in New
Palm
York,
Springs, you don't need a fur coat.
Madrid, you have no reason to wear fur, and that says a lot about the person who's buying that fur. And I will berate someone who wears fur openly because they think it makes them look good, because that fur looks better on the animal than it does the human.
Absolutely. Andrea says, what about moles? They're you know, the little ground creatures are hilarious. You know, pop, pop, pop. It's like that game. They pop up, they pop down, they pop up, they pop down.
They do. Moles are great. You know, again, another species I've spent a lot of time learning about their psychology and behavior. Again, there's no template to solve it, but we've found a way that you can proof your garden from moles. Even if you've got them in your garden, you can work them back up the garden by doing underground proofing, which doesn't harm them or harm any other species in your garden. If you have a problem with moles, please do get in touch. I'm happy to talk through the process with you. And it is a process, but once you're done and you've got all your underground proofing in place, and it's really cheap to do as well, that's your garden mole-free forever. And it still allows the worms in and all the insects which you need to keep your garden healthy.
Wow. Well, Kevin, you are just a delight. I thank you so much for the work you do on behalf of animals. Being vegan 22 years is, first of all, amazing, the amount of animals you're saving and just what you're doing in your work. I hope more people take the lead and that you end up getting subsidiaries and more employees and branching out, because I think it's amazing, you know, what the service you provide.
Thank you so much. And if anyone does want to get in touch, the details will be in the video. You can just Google Humane Wildlife Solutions.
It's in the show notes how to get in touch with you and your
in the
social
show
media.
notes. You get in touch. Even if someone wants to chat or collaborate, I'm always willing to do that because it's important to have these conversations. And AJ, thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on your show and to just explain to people that you can live with wildlife without causing harm.
Right. And Brent says, I wish you would create a YouTube channel and show some of these techniques that you do.
We're working on it. We are working on it.
Nice. Thank you so much, Kevin. It's been a delight.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank
And
you,
thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow and we're going to have a wonderful cooking demonstration by Christine Green, and she's going to be making cauliflower tacos. Take care, Kevin. Thanks again. Bye-bye.